Welcome to Scotch Plains, New Jersey. This is Verizon Fios, Channel 22, and Comcast Cable, Channel 34. Scotch Plains Television. Your town, your TV.
Scotch Plains Television presents a meeting of the Township Council. And now, from the municipal building, the Scotch Plains Mayor and Council.
Welcome back. I think we went a couple of minutes over, but we're pretty close to being on time. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Township of Scotch Plains Business Meeting Agenda for July 22nd, 2014. Ms. Lucina.
I wish to make the following announcement to show compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, known as Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey,
Welcome.
1975. Notice of this meeting was given by adopting an annual schedule of the location, time, and date, sending copies to the Scotch Plains Fanwood Times, the Star Ledger, and the Courier News, posting in the municipal building, and filing a copy with the township clerk within 7 days following the annual organizational meeting of this body. If everyone would please rise for the pledge to the flag and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation by Ms. Gillinella. Councilwoman.
I would ask at this time for a moment of silence. This week I lost somebody very special to me and to my family. Some of you may be aware that my father is one of the 3 under-sheriffs for Union County. Sheriff Ralph Froelich has been a member of my family since I was 2 years old. Because the sheriff dedicated his life to law enforcement and was with us when St. Michael protected my husband. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of heavenly hosts, by the divine power of God, cast into hell Satan and the evil spirits who prowl throughout the world and seek the ruin of souls. Amen.
Amen.
St. Michael the Archangel is the patron saint of law enforcement. The night that my husband was injured, the sheriff and I had a conversation at the hospital, and my husband had been wearing the St. Michael medallion. It's very special to me, and I appreciate you honoring him tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen. Godspeed, Sheriff. If we may. Ms. Lucina, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillinella,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Marcus,
Here.
Mr. Vastine,
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Next section of the meeting, portion of the meeting, public comment. Once again, please come to the mic if you have something you'd like to add, and state your name and address.
Frank Festa, Ramapo Way. Trying to speak for Mr. Osavio. Mr. Osavio had brought a number of people into the town. They have been looking at the empty stores, and the consensus of the feedback is that the store owners are looking for too much rent. If there is anything that we can do, or the town can do, or this committee can do to try to convince these people that a half a loaf right now might be better than none, that's for them to decide.
A lot of reference to baking tonight.
Okay. I'm going to use an old reference that hindsight is 20/20. I know that Brunner has a number of Fanwood students that go to that school along with School 1. Mosley Drive. The Borough of Fanwood had the ability to buy a school building. The school building used to be called the Grand School. It was an elementary school. The Board of Education, or for a better reason, the people down in Trenton told all of the school systems in the state that they had to get rid of all the old school buildings. The Borough of Fanwood had the ability to buy LeGrand School. So when they say that their students have to go to this school and it becomes a big problem for them, it's a problem that they created. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Albert Muller, Ramapo Way as well. Councilwoman, my condolences.
Thank you so much.
I see we have on the agenda again our bond ordinance for discussion perhaps, or maybe voting on for a change. I believe this is the same issue, bond issue, that we've had for the last 2 meetings. Mayor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Has there been any changes from the last time?
No, there have been discussions, but they are not reflected in this second and final reading, which they wouldn't be.
Have conflicts been resolved?
We'll have that conversation, sir, in a little while. I know
Mayor, last time I asked that same question, we sat here for an hour.
Well,
you wasted our time, you wasted our employees' time, you wasted the council time, when if you would have answered that, we could have ended the meeting at that point in time, tabled it, and you could have had the discussions to resolve the issues. Instead, you wasted your employer's time, us.
Sir?
That's unacceptable.
Sir?
Please don't do that again, and that's not transparency.
Sir, I would ask that you show a little respect for the council here. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we had a conference meeting beforehand. That would have been the appropriate time to discuss, what certain people spoke with some folks about in terms of the capital budget. That wasn't reflected here. I respectfully would ask that, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of comments coming forward, that you listen to what's transpired. I think you'll be satisfied. I hope it'll answer those questions and your concerns.
And I hope we don't go on for another hour, because I'm not going to stick around this time. I'm going to go home. I'm not going to waste my time.
Thank you. I don't want to waste your time either. I never want to waste your time, Mr. Muller.
You've done a very good job of it so far.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Nancy Greenman, and I just wanted to bring something to your attention about the capital bond ordinance.
Please.
Your failure to pass it has actually, there's a variety of projects, obviously, that are affected. One of them is the Frazee House. My 14-year-old son's Eagle Project is in jeopardy, basically, while you guys, with all the politics and stuff going on, trying to sort this out. He's been working with a bunch of people who've committed their time since last October, maybe even before then. And it's my understanding that, a lot of the things going on at the Frazee House are tabled for the moment until this gets resolved, and that includes his Eagle Project.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I would like to just clarify a point for you.
Yes.
And congratulations on your son. We're working toward his Eagle project, because I make a point of attending those, and they're truly wonderful. And the kids are just so deserving for all the community work they do. Just so you know, just to clarify it,
Yes.
this bond ordinance is not holding up anything that your son may be involved in the Frazee House. I read an article in the paper as well. It has nothing to do with holding up anything related to that property. Nothing. There is some work to do, some remediation on the property, and you'll hear later that there is no objection to that request. So, contrary to what has been written, I don't believe anything that this council, or certainly that my vote, will affect that building, which I sorely believe in needs the restoration that is long overdue. So I want to make it very clear to you.
Okay.
Can I ask the nature of your son's Eagle Scout project? I'm sorry, just for clarification.
I would have him here tonight, but he's at a Model UN leadership conference. We would have had him speak. But he was going to put in a historical garden, and he was working with the Scotch Plains Rotary Club and Andy, the architect. Yeah. And
Nice fellow.
that's basically, he was going to put in a historical garden. I think there, a bench and whatever, that was going to be his project.
And are the funds?
The funds, we were told, were supposedly, I didn't think they were even tied into the
They're
capital
not tied into the
budget.
capital budget, ma'am.
Well, then I don't understand.
I don't
what the
understand what,
holdup is
I read
either.
the same article you said, and I'm still scratching my head.
Is there any way maybe you could speak to the manager? And the manager could help provide some assistance to that? Because based on what I know about Eagle Scout projects, I can't imagine that it would be contingent upon such a large ticket item as a capital. And I also don't know that the Scouts would have approved a budget that could potentially be a project that would have been influenced by.
Hasn't been approved, I mean, he's still working with his Boy Scout troop to get the plan worked out. But he was working with the Scotch Plains Rotary Club, and we were understood that the funds existed. I would never have let him even pick the project if it had anything to do with a capital budget, because you would know that he'd be graduating from high school probably.
Miss, if I could help
So
you.
the manager,
I mean, he's going into 10th grade. He's been working on this since last summer. He's met every single Eagle requirement. The last thing left is
Sure,
to
no.
do this project.
so can I just make the
Yes.
suggestion
Yes.
that you reach out to our very capable manager?
Sure.
And that he provide you whatever assistance or clarification. It just doesn't make sense to me that an Eagle Scout project would be tied to a capital bond ordinance. And maybe he could help you with that.
Yeah, I mean,
All right,
so
I'd
the
be happy to
manager's
talk to
hearing
him.
about
That's
it for
no
the
problem.
first time. I've never heard about it.
That's why
I
I'm
love
doing
your Eagle Scouts, okay?
I know you've been there.
So I've been there how many times at the Court of Honor, right? Haven't missed one. Haven't missed one.
Mayor, if I may ask a question related to that. Perhaps, and this, I don't know for sure, but the bond ordinance relates to the remediation of soil
Right.
that the Department of Environmental Protection said we had to
So maybe my
remediate.
son can't put his garden in until that's
I don't know that I would
taken
want to
care of.
eat the vegetables out of a garden where soil has to be remediated.
Right.
So I think that might be,
Maybe
Good.
that's
I don't
the
know for a
stumbling
fact,
blocks,
but-
inadvertently that's affecting his project then,
Mi-
because
Miss-
this has to
I don't know
happen
for a
first.
fact, but I
Where's
would
your son?
suggest, excuse me?
Who asked her son? I'd love to know the person who's giving that information.
What?
That this was going to be a problem.
Well,
Who did?
Can I say? I think
Yeah, by all means, I'm asking
It's on
you.
Bill McClintock from the Rotary
Oh, Bill
Club.
McClintock, the head of the former head of the
That's who
Republican Party.
Justin's working with. That's who my son's working with.
Thank you.
But it makes sense to me that the remediation would
Yeah,
have to happen
they're not
first, so
gonna
maybe
allow-
that's really what he's
There's-
referring
There's
to.
nothing we can do on that property until the soil is remediated.
So that would hold up my son's Eagle project.
And that
then.
was
Miss,
brought
I
to
think-
us 2 years ago.
Excuse me, I think it's very disgusting that Bill McClintock, former mayor of this town, would play your family and trade off your son for some politically aspirations. And I will say to you, that's not the case. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Perfect.
And,
Okay.
you know, long live the Boy Scouts and the Eagle Scouts. I'd love to be with your son. I think it's despicable what happened here. Disgraceful.
Maybe we could have
Please.
brought the Save the Shady Rest signs.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Otto Pickard, and I live on Redwood Road. And I'm not going to talk about what you think I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about ConocoPhillips and the pipeline.
Yes, sir.
An offer has been made to build a pipeline from Albany, New York to Linden, going through many Union County towns, including Scotch Plains. It was in the Scotch Plains Times on 2 occasions, in the Courier News and in the Star Ledger. The oil that will be, the crude oil that will be sent to Linden is the most volatile of all the many types of crude oil, according to an article in the Wall Street Journal last February. Please feel free to check that out. I don't remember the exact date. The finished product will go in a parallel pipeline back to Albany, and the finished product will include gasoline, diesel fuel, aviation fuel. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel all we need is one leak, and we could have a Holocaust in this town. And one thing that concerns me from the Scotch Plains Times article of July 10th, the article stated that on June 18th, there was a closed-door meeting among the mayors of Union County with at least one representative of ConocoPhillips. I think most of us here believe in transparency, so I was wondering, Mayor Glover, could you give any specifics about this closed-door meeting that occurred between this multi-billion-dollar oil company and the mayors of Union County?
Well, first of all, thank you. And I was asked to attend a meeting by the county for a proposed pipeline that is not being, I believe, Mr. Gimes, because Mr. Gimes, the manager, and I recently met with the folks looking to build this pipeline. And quite frankly, the reason I attended the meeting is because I, like several others, heard there was something going on. So I thought it was the best interest of our citizens to be there. And being there, these folks left with their heads spinning because clearly they came with very little information that we could share with you. And we asked for subsequent meetings, a meeting with them, which Mr. Gimes and I just held 2 days ago, correct, Mr. Gimes? To get clarification on what they are doing. And this is an independent company that it's called the Pilgrim Pipeline.
Yes.
And they are being sponsored by a hedge fund. So we were looking for where the capital was. And we understood what we learned and discerned from these meetings was that they were looking to run this exactly the locations you described, and it would follow the easement along the power line grid.
Yes.
With PSE&G, I guess it is, right, Mr. Gimes? I want to assure you that we asked at that meeting, we've been monitoring what progress. I don't want to discount what their intention is. They intend to put a pipeline in. But I will say to you, it is so preliminary where they are right now that, not that I wouldn't lose sleep over it, but I think they shared with us the earliest they could even entertain getting approvals on this is probably a year and a half time away. And that's not to say that they're not hell-bent on getting those approvals, sir. And it will carry a low grade of fuel as high as jet fuel. So you're absolutely right. But we only became aware of it, and my presence there was to make sure there was transparency. And upon being at that meeting, I conveyed it to our manager because that's where he has to step in and understand, because there are legal aspects there. And it is a piece of property that the township owns that they are looking to secure, which would involve bringing our attorneys in to get involved. So there's going to be much more to be said about that. As I said, it's in some very preliminary states. There's a chance it may not happen. There's a chance it may happen, but I'll defer now to Mr. Gimes to confirm everything I just shared with you.
No, I believe you.
No, but I would like him to weigh in on it. I hope you appreciate it. That's why I went, sir.
I do appreciate it. And what concerns me, however, is the fact that this is really a dangerous project. Just one leak could cause a Holocaust in town.
I will have you know that every mayor there, and it was well represented, from Garwood to Fanwood, Scotch Plains, and on and on and on and on. Linden, Elizabeth, we all shared that concern, and we all recognize that there is safety first.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that. And
Thank
although
you.
it's preliminary, I'm going to request that the town council hereby do what the political leaders of Parsippany and Troy Hills have already done. They have issued a resolution opposing the passage of that pipeline through their land. And I hope Scotch Plains does the same thing.
Thank you
very
so much for your comments. I'm sure you appreciate what we tried to do. Mr. Gimes, you got off the hook there. I had to take the heat. Hello,
Good
sir.
evening. Robert Jordaneller of Monica Place. I am here as I'm chairman of the Recreation Commission, and I'm appearing tonight on behalf of the Recreation Commission, urging the council to please take action in a positive way on the capital bond ordinance that's going to be under consideration. we have a few projects, and before I start, I'm not here at the urging of anybody. Nobody's asked me to come other than my fellow commissioners. I've not been approached by anybody to come. So, and one of my fellow commissioners, Mike Walsh, is here joining me as well. We have a couple of projects that we have been approached by people attending our meetings, asking us what's going on. Specifically Brookside Park and the pond there. One of the items on the capital budget is to do some, at least step one, phase one work on that. We've had public show up at our meetings talking about Terry Lou Zoo property. Yes. And there is an item on the capital bond budget about that. I know that there's been discussion about an audit of the facilities. I know that
That's
at
not
least,
on there.
well, that has an impact because we're seeking to.
But it's not on the capital budget, Bob.
It's not on the capital budget, but the approval of the capital budget. Well, just hear me out. The approval of the capital budget, it's a domino effect. So without the approval of the capital budget and some of the items on there, the Recreation Department cannot take a second step with respect to seeking some funding in order to do that. So therefore, I would duly suggest that the capital bond ordinance, it does impact that, even though it's not specific. So, you know, and that's just the recreation. You know, I could show up here as an individual and say that there are other aspects of the capital bond ordinance that impact the police department, DPW, other aspects. So I would respectfully request that the council try to come to some understanding and be able to pass this so we're not hamstrung on having to get this delayed any further.
You know I like meeting with you. We've reached out to each other several times.
Yep.
And some of those projects that you alluded to, Mike Dempsey and I were very close on talking about them. The Terry Lou Zoo project, you know, even Brookside. And again, what I hope you'll hear later is 2 weeks ago we had a meeting, some of us did, with the manager, and I have no objection to those two projects.
So you know, I have a feeling we're sort of held captive, maybe because of others, and you know, look, I don't know the whole process. You know, I have my understanding, and I could very well be wrong, is that you're unable to pick and choose because of the process.
I don't think those, listen, your first job and foremost is public safety. I know that. And, you know, building recreation around public safety for our children and our adults. And certainly, there's no one on this council, I don't believe, wants to stand in the way for it. But we're not going to hold you hostage because I'm not holding you hostage. I can look you straight in the eye. If someone else is holding you hostage because they want to, you know, procure things that I'm not in favor of, that's another story. So, Mr.
Okay.
Bob,
well,
I always appreciate you coming here.
Okay.
And I appreciate the work the Rec Commission does, always have.
Well, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? Chairman, if you don't mind, I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming. I know in the summer months especially, it's very difficult. And thank you for your work that you're doing with the Recreation Commission, voluntarily, all volunteerism. I have a question specific to the ADA audit that you referenced. I just want to make sure I understand the pieces of the recreation request that impede that, because I as we move forward, it's very important to me that audit occur. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could help me understand what pieces are impeding that, I want to make sure that any passing of the capital ordinance, any vote that I cast at least would include those pieces. Please.
I would agree.
Well, I'm going to try to make it simple as I could, and I'll ask the manager if I misstate anything. But the Recreation Department in past years has applied to Union County for certain kids grants, and that some of the money that will be actually as part of the bond ordinance, we can, and I don't know the exact mechanics. All I know is that some of the funds will enable us to go and apply toward a kids grant, which which has been, and the kids grant, and you know, I had the privilege of being at your meeting 3, 4, 5 months ago when we went over the rec budget and the capital, and it was presented there. There was sort of a separate box that said, okay, if these funds are approved through the capital bond ordinance, then that can be used toward a matching grant, because we have to certify, if I understand correctly, to the county that funds have been set aside or there's a matching amount. So we're unable to do that, or the town is unable to do that certification if the funds haven't been, you know, passed as far as the bond ordinance. So that's why I'm saying it was a domino effect. The passing of the bond ordinance will have funds available that we could then use for the kids grant. So
I think I thank you so much for that, because you know this is something that I've been tuned into for a while. I apologize that I don't remember that particular part of the conversation at all in the budget meeting, but I would just ask this. I really need to understand that piece of the recreation request, because there were, you know, obviously, I mean, I don't want to engage too much here, but in case you're leaving, I would say this. If for whatever reason, the pieces that you feel as a commission are tied to that ADA audit, ADA audits are not so much money that couldn't come out of the operating budget that is available to recreation. It's one of those line items that there is some flexibility with. And you know what, you have my information. I don't want to waste anybody's time. If we could talk offline about this, I would really like to help in any way that I can.
okay.
Bob, and I'll second
Okay.
that. I'm unaware of any money here, and Mr. Gimes wants to tell me in the requests that were made that says matching fund. So if you just reach us out to us,
Well,
and we'll talk to you about it. But
You know, with all due respect.
Can I just want to move on? I want to go. I understand that. I was being respectful to him, but that, Bob, we're going to have more of a discussion about this
Okay.
shortly.
No, I mean, with all due respect, I had a copy of what the page that was, I believe, in the book.
Okay, well,
And there was a section of kids grant, so, you know,
Bob,
it's
to be-
not the first. but-
We're not walking away from that. I don't have
Okay.
it on the sheet that was presented to me from the, you know, the summary at the end.
Okay.
So but we can sync up on
Okay.
that as early as
Well,
tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'll stick around and see what's going on.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Mr. Lair and Town Manager. First of all, I'd like to compliment everybody who was working on the concerts so far this year. They've been wonderful. It's nice to sit out there in the park, and it's nice to watch the young kids dance on the stage and having lots of fun. It really is a good feeling. And seeing other people in your neighborhood and talking. I also would like to comment on Darby Road. I was not able to get there because I couldn't find a parking space, but I did watch the World Cup and it was good. I do believe Darby Road did bring a lot of people from the outside to come and see those soccer players. Yay, Germany. I sometimes sit here and I feel that the meetings do get very political, but I'm not even going to discuss that tonight. We talk about transparency, we talk about transparency. We had gotten the architectural report on the Shady Rest, and I was not able to get it. I finally was able to come into the municipal building. Bonnie did print one up, and it was put in the library last week. I looked over that entire pack of papers, and needless to say, I was upset because we talk about safety issues, we talk about transparency, keeping people informed. Now, when I read that there's exposed live wires in that building, where there are outlets that have reverse polarity, where there are pest nests in the kitchen vent, and it goes on and on and on. And those were only the short-term recommendations. That is not a safe thing. And we rent this place out. I mean, I do not think that is a positive image of the people of Scotch Plains. You want the money, but then you've got to maintain the building. The bond ordinance. I've looked at that, and I know that I don't have an item for everything that everybody wants to purchase, okay? And all I would say is that, like Brookside Park cleanup, that could have been covered by a grant. I know that, okay? When I looked in the Scotch Plains Times and I saw all the things that were recommended, the very last sentence in that was 0 grants. There were no grants from any department that are gonna cover any of this ordinance. Mountainside is getting a police interceptor vehicle, and that's partially being covered by a grant. And then they're going to get their older vehicle, I guess, for sale to another town. So they're saving money. Everybody wants a lot of things, and I think you all know, if you have children or you yourself, you would like this, this, and this for your home, and your kids want this, this, and this for their birthday. A wish list means you don't always get it all, okay? We can't have it all. You have to pick and choose very carefully how you're spending your money, okay? If it were coming out of your own personal checkbooks, I think one might think a little differently. There are people here who live on fixed budgets. There are people here who are not working. This is not a wonderful time economically in this country. And when you see what's happening around the world, it is not going to be good with the Russia thing and everything else. All I would like to say is that let your conscience be your guide, okay, when you are voting, because we can't have it all. We all would like to, but dollars are very important to every person in this town. I was not born and raised here, and I lived here almost 50 years, but it's amazing to me that with the thousands and thousands of people we have living in Scotch Plains, you have maybe 40 or 50 who come to a meeting to voice their concerns or opinion, and that is our right. We do have freedom of speech. Whether one agrees with us or me or not is irrelevant, but we do have freedom of speech. And I thank you very much for your time. Good luck on the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Good evening, Town Council. Sylvia Hicks for the Preserve JDRS Committee. I thought I had a big mouth. But anyway, this is Sylvia Hicks reporting. Wanted to make some. Come on now, guys.
Just come around the corner a little bit.
All right. Can you hear me now? All right. Again, my name is Sylvia Hicks with the Preserve the Shady Rest Committee. And I wanted to start off, first of all, with a response to you, Mr. Vastine, with your paid photo op that you had at Shady Rest. I did send a letter to the Scotch Plains Times. However, for whatever reason, they didn't publish it. But again, I think that's just another political move to ensure that you get a seat come November.
Speaking to the chair, because you're not supposed to speak to me directly.
Right now, I said to Mr. Vastine.
I know, but that's
Okay.
not appropriate. If you would like
You
to
could address your comment to me,
the
you
mayor.
can, please.
Okay.
It'll
I want to
get there.
read to you, I want to read to you, Town Council, the response that I did send to the Scotch Plains Times. And I would like to say I was amused by the paid photo op, an article in last week's Times, taking at Scotch Hills Golf Country Club that Scotch Plains Councilman Vastine appeared in, but I wasn't. In fact, I and many are once again outraged to read of the ongoing political motivated comments, as they were clearly only intended to serve the campaign for re-election for this year. In the past, shameful and untrue public statements regarding his association with the bipartisan volunteer Preserve the Shady Rest Committee that was working to support the repair and the restoration of the Shady Rest Golf and Country Club building, America's first privately owned African American Golf and Country Club. Sadly, this is an historical clubhouse that has been neglected and allowed to fall into disrepair. While under the management of the Scotch Plains Municipality, for the record, Mr. Vastine and Town Council have voted against taking immediate action to repair the building's roof. I would appreciate your interest into building, I appreciate your interest in building a statue in the honor of Mr. John Shipman. Why not begin committing to the restoration of the building? I'm asking that the Town Council side with Ms. Gianella and Mr. Glover in installing a new roof. Given that said, and I'm sorry if it's personal, but it is personal to me, and regardless of who's saying what to who, this has got to stop. I'm tired. I'm tired. Mr. Jimes, I received your email. I ran home before I came here, and I saw that you sent me an email. And I hope you're earnest in your email, but I don't think, me personally, I don't think it's from the heart. I hope you can prove me wrong, because I find it interesting that I left a mess. I've been waiting for 4 weeks for a phone call, 2 weeks for an email response, and I really think that you are, and along with the other Town Council members, afraid that I can fill this room with just a Facebook posting. I can't do that. If I wanted to fill this room with Shady Rest supporters, I could have easily stood in front of St. John's Baptist Church on Sunday and said, come down here, and they would have come. I could have walked over to Metropolitan Baptist Church, they would have came. I could have made a phone call to Emmanuel, to Terrell Road Baptist Church, and quite a few other churches in the area that are concerned about the care that you're taking with the Shady Rest Clubhouse. I wasn't looking to fill a room tonight, but I did want to beat the grass, as the old people used to say, because you want to see what comes up. And oddly enough, and maybe it's bad timing, but I got your email this morning. Unfortunately, I didn't read it until tonight. We do want you to come and meet with us. I will send you an email tonight or either early in the morning when I get up. And I would like to hope that you're going to prove me wrong. I told you in March that I'm a woman of my word, that we would not show our face here again until we saw that the Shady Rest restoration was going to start and that it was going to be placed on the agenda for repair. Now, you all voted, Mr. Jones, Mr. Marcus, Mr. Vastine, you all voted no. You said you needed to study. Well, you had to study. I've read the study from beginning to end twice. I have made notes in the margin, so this way I don't forget. What concerns me is what this young lady just said, is that the recommendations for the short term, and I want to make sure I get this right. The short-term recommendations in section 7, page 184 and 185, they give you a list of things that need to be done within the next 6 months. One of them is the roof, leaders, gutters, foundation, ventilation. These things need to be repaired, all right? It states also that the estimated cost would be between $50,000 to $75,000 for the short list. And this is the short-term list. Now, just the roof by itself, on page 97 of this report, it says that the foundation and the roof, or I'm sorry, that the building and the foundation can support a new roof. You've got 2 layers up there already. You've had emergency repairs done. We pass by it all the time and we see people up on the roof. So something's going on. Chimney that has to be addressed. We want to get this done before the winter comes again. Now, just the roof repair, or I should say replacing the roof, would be $44,000 pending this report. So I want to know how many of you have read the report?
I read the report.
Has anybody read this report?
I read the report, and I mean, I would say that when the mayor and Mayor, do you mind if I?
No, let her finish. I mean,
Because,
I've read the report.
Because I have, like I said, Ms. Gianella, I've read this report twice. I've read it from beginning to end. It's an excellent report. I mean, you've got a lot of things in there that I don't think you need to have, but in terms of the historical value, the goals that we want to see for this building, the preservation history, the repairs that have to be done, I was fascinated just by the deeds that were in here, all right? But the bottom line is that you guys said that when you get the report, you're going to look it over, you're going to put it on the agenda, all right? September 3rd, 2013, you voted for a $138,000 bond ordinance. If you need me to cite it for you, I have it here and I can quote it. But it was $138,000. I want to find out, when do you plan on putting out bids to replace the roof, to start these short-term repairs that cost less than $138,000, so you'll still have some change left.
So I don't know if this exactly addresses your question, and I appreciate you recognizing me, Mr. Mayor. But the mayor and I did meet with the manager recently. I also had a very positive conversation with the manager after reviewing the report. I believe the manager has a number in mind that he will be recommending to the council to bond for Shady Rest for immediate repairs. I think where we may be having a little bit of discrepancy, although he and I have not spoken in recent days, is where the recommendation to include that dollar amount will come. Would it be included in the capital bond ordinance, or would it be put into a separate bond ordinance? But I do believe, and not to speak for the manager, that he does have a number that he's going to recommend be included for the initial repairs, with some wiggle room based on the report. And I do want to say this: you and I have spoken privately, and and I was very adamant in here. This is not the firm that I thought we should be going forward with. However,
you mean the architect?
Yes.
I think he did an excellent job.
Which is where I want to say. He did a fantastic
phenomenal
job. And Mr. Jimes has assured me that that was not for additional money, all of the work that went into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as far as the quality of the report,
superior.
It is, we got what we paid for.
And then some.
And then some exponentially. We did very well. So I want to just go on the record as saying that it is an excellent report.
I told him, and I sent him an email, and I applauded him because, like I said, I have worked on previous restoration projects before in New Jersey and then also in Virginia. We could have used him about 4 years ago, because the quality of work that he put out and the accuracy, he left no stone unturned, none.
It was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And it was well worth the read, all 369 pages of it. But my question still stands, is that you had that $138,000 that you passed. What do you plan on doing with that?
Certainly that money that was reallocated, what that did was it changed the definition of one bond ordinance to allow the money to be used, and that's what you're referring to. So that was never specifically said to be used for anything. The thought in my mind always was when this report came in, we would determine what the immediate fixes are. Some work has been done in the last few months, smaller stuff, probably not stuff you're going to notice from driving by,
obviously,
or walking by. As a result of the report, and as a result of some of the information that came to us even before the report was made public, just based on what we knew. That being said, it'll be up to a council discussion. I have some ideas in mind on how much we should spend. I'm not sure if all of the costs in there refer to labor. Some of them don't, some of them do.
No, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Towards the back, the final options, A, B, C, D, they do refer to labor. Some of the ones earlier on don't refer to labor. So, those costs in all likelihood will double. So I was thinking of a number. As I said, I don't know if you're here at the earlier meeting, but I said within the next 2 weeks, I'm going to try to get the council together with the consultant to come here and have a public meeting, so the consultant can formally present it, to the council and the public, And then at that time, based on his recommendation, if the council agrees, disagrees, or whichever, they would decide how much money they want to spend.
Okay, no, I apologize. I couldn't make it for the earlier meeting. I had to leave work. I got to go back to work. I've been waiting to speak my piece. I really hope that you all do the right thing, because this is nothing political. This is history. I mean, I don't see how you can go to bed at night or look yourself in the mirror and not do the right thing by this building. And I'm not looking, none of us that are here that represent the committee are looking for any major expenditures. Thank you, Steve. We're just looking to just preserve what we got. We're not looking for conference rooms and all that stuff. We just want a roof. Straight up, plain and simple. How hard is that? And I'm tired, flat out tired, of using that poor building as a leverage tool. Cut it out. Find another platform to stand on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. If I may just answer, I think just to clarify to some of the folks who may not have read the report, I think what Mr. Hicks was referring to was that once you do read the report, you'll find that the immediate repairs were about $200,000, I think, right, Mr. Gines? But someone gave direction and proposed some significant additional work to that building that could cost the municipality millions of dollars. And so that has to be flushed out as well. I don't know where the direction came from, but it's certainly not the intent of preserving a historical building to put $3 to $5 million worth of supplemental, a community center next to it. The architect, I believe, even alluded to the fact that does not bode well for preserving the building's history. Sir?
Mark Ginsberg, 40 Spruce Mill Lane. I just wanted to clarify something that Mrs. Hicks said, and she talked about a paid political picture. I was the one responsible for that, and the reason for that picture to go in the paper is Scotch Plains Day last year, I signed up to be part of the Shady Rest Committee, gave them my email address, and was getting emails and updates from the committee. At some point, I stopped. I believe it's because somebody recognized my email address or realized it was, and because I'm part of the Republican committee, I've been cut out of the picture. In the meantime, though, I've struck up a friendship with Dr. Salmons, and we play golf on a regular basis, and I invited him, and he invited Mr. Williams from USGA to come to Shady Rest. We played golf together, and I'm trying to, in my own way, to help in this project, because the end is what it's all about, that everybody wants the same goal, and because I felt like I was cut out from what they were doing, because, again, I'm just telling you a fact. I signed up and I stopped getting emails.
You and I talk regularly. Mrs. Hicks is still here. You may ask her if that was her intent to cut you out.
No.
I don't think, listen, we have Republican committeemen.
I know
know
Steve, right.
Steve is on that committee.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's anyone's intent to cut anyone off.
But again, so I was cut out. I stopped getting emails probably 6 months ago. I was getting them regularly.
Quite frankly, I haven't got any either. For the last 2 months,
so maybe,
I don't think there's been any correspondence.
But anyway, so I have a
But
friend,
anyway.
so just so you know, I was the one responsible for that picture.
Okay.
And I will show anybody who wants to see the email that I sent both Dr. Salmons and Mr. Williams. Before I would put that in the paper, I wanted to let them know I wanted to put in the paper, and they said, if it will help the Shady Rest project by our names being associated and being at the facility, then please put it in. But I didn't do it without getting full approval from Dr. Salmon and Mr. Williams, because they want to see that project go forward. The USGA wants to help in the project, and I've been trying to help and, trying to stop a lot of accusations and finger pointing going around, and when I feel I've been alienated from being part of the process as well. And just so you know, and I've been trying to help in my own way.
As
Okay.
always. Good seeing you again. Anyone else coming forward? I guess so.
I'm sorry, sir. What did you say your name was? Excuse me, sir. What is your name? Mark. I've never
listen, yeah,
The comments should be directed to
I would
you.
agree. If you have a question, please address it to me, or
yes.
concern, comment, let's not have a debate on the floor.
Okay, it has been over a year now, and I think it's time to just put a roof on the building, please.
Thank you. For comments? That works.
Could I ask a question?
Are there anyone else?
Maybe you
Is-
wanna let,
is- What's that?
Is public comment on you,
I want to end public comment. I was just about to end.
Right,
public
I know,
comment.
but Councilwoman Gianella was given the
No,
opportunity.
I'm not saying you won't be. I was asked a question. Are we finished? I don't see anybody coming up to the mic, so we're going to close public comment. But by all means, if you have something to say,
Well, I have a question. And this is kind of a question to the Shady Rest Collective, to the Preserve the Shady Rest Collective. Committee. Usually the term collective means of the whole, but whatever. Is that all you want, is a new roof on the building? Oh, so you don't care that the upstairs is condemned and that the foundation is crumbling? But that's not what you're saying.
wait a minute. Let's not get a debate. No,
But my question is...
But wait a minute. Mr. Lara, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
it shouldn't be a debate.
We shouldn't have a debate here.
But my
okay?
question is...
The question,
Excuse me.
you're
Okay, so
engaging her
my
in a
apologies.
debate, and the attorney just
my
said we ought not to
apologies.
do that.
Very good. My
so
apologies.
Again, you take license to do
Okay,
what you want to do.
Very good. My apologies. My question is it all they want is a new roof?
We start with the roof.
Well, okay.
That's the beginning.
Excuse me, I'm...
You asked the question, so I'm standing here answering
Okay,
you.
so, do I have permission to...
Well, no, I don't, I think it was been resoundingly clear, Mr. Vestine, and I think you know, and I think most people know, is in engaging this architect, what his assignment was to do was to first and foremost secure the building from further deterioration, Mr. Vestine.
okay.
Doing that was to put a new roof on. There was concern that we shouldn't spend money, as you recall. In fact, we had someone say it was going to cost $250,000 to put a roof on, which was obscene. But the intent was, let's not do that till we engage a professional to make certain that a new roof could be supported by the present structure. I think that's what I heard tonight. As part of that, so we deferred our decision on that. Secondly, the architect, who I agree happens to have done a wonderful job, has said, I've worked on these before. So the first thing you do is you secure the roof. And then you heard, and the roof is $44,000. You've heard numbers of over $200,000 today, is then to fix, once you've secured the outside, that it's not leaking anymore, fix the electrical, fix the sheetrock, redo the floors, the broken windows, the gutters. So, no, sir. They just don't want a roof. They just want to start someplace. And that's what the architect has referenced and made a point of saying. You fix the roof and you work down, you procure enough money to be able to do that. What I think the objection, sir, when you read it, Mr. Vestine, you'll see on that document, there's millions of dollars of expense.
I've read it.
Okay, well,
And my
before it was
point,
asked.
if I may continue, because all I've heard this evening is we need a new roof, we need this, we need that, and yet the architect's study took a much longer term view and perspective of what that building can be. And honestly, if you recall, I was the one that made the motion for the $138,000.
Yeah, you did.
Right.
I got every testimony, I got every ordinance,
Okay.
I got every
Okay.
piece of minutes.
Okay, so-
I know
so-
exactly who said what, and
Right.
I can tell you the
Okay.
date.
Okay, thank you. The point that I'm trying to make is that for some reason, there's some belief that someone up here is opposed to doing the right thing there.
Do I see, well, why don't you make a motion right now?
The motion is already out there.
I don't hear anybody make a motion.
The money has already been allocated to do that. There has been work done.
That's emergency work, Mr. Vaccine.
And I'm saying, the point is that if we're gonna, okay, excuse me.
Hold it, please. Wait a minute.
The point I'm making is that
Point
if
of
you're
order,
gonna
can
do
we
something beyond an emergency.
We gotta reset. We have to reset, guys.
We have to do it the right way.
Well, listen. If people want to,
And that's gonna take more than $30,000
Ms. Hicks,
for a
can I
roof.
just say something? We we're losing some decorum in this meeting, and you've been very eloquent the way you've spoken, and I think they all listened to what you had. I know they did. I know I did. I know Mr. Johns did. The public comment portion is done. I know Mr. Vastine asked you a question, but before we get out of hand.
Oh, trust me, I don't want to be out of hand.
I know.
I really don't.
And remember
because
one thing, we haven't even gotten to the capital budget ordinance yet for public hearing, and there's a lot of discussion about that.
That's fine.
So why don't we
address him?
So why don't we? I know that public comment. I thought that public comment was done, and
It was
we
not.
were moving on.
It was not, I thought it was gonna be done too, but there are people coming to the
You
mic.
just opened up a big can of worms. You're taking our words and twisting them around, sir.
Whatever. But I think that the issue about
But the issue is that when you get down to it, you have to start from the top when a building is in jeopardy. That report says, sir, that there are structural beams there that need to be addressed. You need to put a roof on to protect what is left up there. And then you work your way down.
the way I understood the discussion on Shady Rest happening, and I know you're all up here to talk about it, was that Mr. Jimes going to ultimately make a recommendation, bring the gentleman in, and there will be a discussion and a ultimate decision made in the not too distant future. So if you all want to come up and speak about it again, I'm not going to stop you. The mayor's not going to stop you, but he's going to ultimately come back and make a recommendation. Am I mistaken?
That's fine.
Right.
But you know what? I said before, I said I was a woman of my word, sir. I waited and I waited and I waited. It's been since March. I've got committee members here that have been on me to say, Sylvia, why haven't you said something? Well, I said, I wanted to give them time. Well, you've had the report, sir, for 2 months.
Yeah, I understood the way.
How much time do you need to know that when you need to start making necessary repairs and preparation now to prepare for the coming winter?
Right.
We don't know what the winter's going to bring again.
I'm
The
just the
last time
attorney.
it happened,
I'm just the
it caused a
attorney.
lot of damage.
But I heard him say he was going to come back
And
with
I
a
believe it,
recommendation.
and I'm going to trust it.
Okay.
I'm going to keep him to his word.
Okay. I
Thank
just
you
don't
again.
think it's necessary that we have a whole lot of debate and discussion about it, because there will ultimately
I
be.
said my piece. I responded to a question, and I got back up and answered.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Higgs.
Kimberly Nix, Myrtle Avenue, Scotch Plains. I have 2 things. Chief Mahoney, right? Okay, I've contacted the one of your law enforcers regarding the traffic down the 300 block of Myrtle Avenue. Hernandez, he has yet to call me back. And one day I just saw him kind of riding up the street. He looked me in the face. He knew I was, But I just would like a call back regarding the traffic on that street, because that's the first street. It goes all the way through. And then one day I was walking down Hunter Avenue. And I think all those blocks are 25, and my block has a sign for autistic children. I think it's disrespectful for him not to call me back. And I think I've called him like several times. If you could just kind of ask him to give me a call back. I've left 2 voicemails, 2 cell phone numbers and my work number. I appreciate it. Isn't there something in that this paper here that says you're going to pay somebody $5,000 to do the roof? I'm going to bring that up again, okay? I figured I'd just go through the back door, okay? But isn't it, you're fixing something that just needs, you keep piecemealing something here. It's not fair to the community. It's not fair to African Americans in those 20s, 30s, and 40s who used to come here, who used to dance and party and do everything they could with Mr. Shipman at that time or even before that time, to not to want to do the right thing. If it was your culture, your ethnic background, I think that everybody would be wanting to do something. The man back there said it's going to be a Holocaust if you do a pipeline. Well, I think the same thing about my culture. You said you like me, but come on, let's work together on this. Let's just work together. It's not just a roof. You know that. You know it's not just a roof. You can't tell me you don't know that in your heart of hearts. You're going to sit there, and whoever else is going to sit there like this, ignoring people, talking. That's so disrespectful. It's really disrespectful. Come on, we don't want just a roof. We've worked hard on this, and nobody's going to do anything about it. That's just ridiculous. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've I've lived in this town for like since I was 6 years old. I'm 54. You know, I really love this town, but I don't particularly like the fact that people are disrespectful to each other on this town council. You know, it's just not right. And then you're disrespectful to a whole committee that's worked hard. It's the same thing with that ad hoc committee you talk about. Let them come up here and talk about what they're doing in the meantime, in between time. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just nothing wrong with that. Mr. Johns, you sit there, you don't even answer, you don't even look at the mayor. You're disrespectful.
Mr. Mayor,
You're just disrespectful.
I was going to say,
I was just about this, Mayor. This discussion is getting out of hand.
No.
you would give me a chance
But
if
that's
you
your
would.
job.
And it's my
sat
job.
there
You
for
give me a
5
chance.
minutes.
I'll stop.
I sat there.
I'll stop.
And I was
It's
going to
because
say
that's
enough.
the golden boy name.
Okay.
I'm up here again to support Miss Sylvia Hicks in her zeal to preserve this historical jewel that we have amongst this town.
Thank you.
Steve Steinberger, 7 Scotchwood Glen, Scotch Plains. I've been a resident of this town for over 40 years. When Scotch Hills first became a public course, I joined it. So I'm probably one of the original members that are still around. After reform, or after Thurman and Ruby Simmons found out about John Shippen and the historical significance to Scotch Hills, or as it was called, Shady Rest, I realized that we had a beautiful gem that no other town in the United States could take away from us. And I played in that course for over 20 years or 30 years. Okay. I hate to see it in the shape that it's in now. Okay. I know that there's 3 or 4 plans, multi-million-dollar plans, but there doesn't have to be multi-million-dollar plans. Fix the roof, fix the electric, fix the foundation, fix it to where it should be. It shouldn't cost you $1 million. You have an obligation, not to me, but to our grandkids. We have an opportunity to make this town, or at least the golf course, a tourist attraction. Not to be a drain on the town budget, but to be a surplus. Many years ago, it used to be a surplus, but we lost that surplus because of mismanagement and neglect. And it shouldn't have to be that way.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Vin Lasavio, Scotch Plains. I'm like a mosquito. Baby sleep, I'm back. I got 85 today. Plus 9 plus.
Mr. Lasavia, please. I'll be yelled at again if you don't speak.
I'm here about the downtown committee and things what we're doing. I just something for the council and you guys. I've been in town. My father with the store 75 years. I've been here 47. I got a degree in marketing. I market the store. I have 4 or 5 stores that are for rent. You want to have a committee, beautify the town. It's great. We years ago when they hired somebody from Bell Labs, came down. It's good to have a committee. The town's going to look great, beautified. But I spent in the last month 3 full days. I was on the phone. I called Colangelo's. I called 15 businesses. 6 of them came down into Scotch Plains. No committees putting the facade. We need that because the town could look like Armour to Cranford. I agree. It would be beautiful. But they all came in. They were all. One was a gluten-free bakery. He was down the other day. He loved the town. He loved the parking in the back. One was a Italian bakery. One was a coffee shop. One was cupcakes and stuff, but that might not go. There was I have a whole list of stores. So you have to take that step, and that's why I think you need the council. You say keep the government out, but nobody else has the power to do this. If we got together, and I got on the phone, and I was in the store, my brother, I said, gee, he said, you gotta cut some meat, man, you're on the phone the whole day. He said, and they were gun-ho, when they saw it, they loved it. They came down one day, the guy came in, he said, I'm gonna bring my daughter, the gluten-free bakery, with a coffee shop in the front, and he had pastries on the other side. He loved the bakery shop. Another guy went down the other block. They saw it once. They never came back. I called a few. The rent. And I said, well, you know, I didn't know what the other guys were getting. So I don't know how we can approach these other guys, but they're $500 to $700 more than the average rent on the block. And it's scaring these people out. So if we combined, you know, doing some footwork and making phone calls to get business, and have a committee for the facades and make the town like a little dollhouse, and you put them together, it's great. But I mean, if we work and put facades and make the town look like a dollhouse, and these guys keep the rents like Westfield, they left, and they were big stores. I had a guy from Bergen County. If you stop down, I'll show you the list I have. So before the committee, I think that we should do something. I think you have the power. I mean, if we all get on the phone and look, I was telling people, I put it on the Scotch Plains website. I said, we have to go out when you're shopping and you stop in a store and say, how would you like to go to Scotch Plains? And I talked to a woman in Cranford today. I went to buy baby clothes for my granddaughter, and she said, I love it. The rent is less than I'm paying, and the parking is great. But she didn't realize the rent. When I saw the rent, when the vacuum store left. And
Mr. Sasab, we've heard what you have to say. The rents are too high. We've heard it. Actually, someone else came up and mentioned it. We understand your concern.
Yeah, I told them what to say.
We understand. Thank you very much.
All right. I mean, can you go out? Can you make a few phone calls?
I'll talk to the the council members about that. But thank you for your comment.
Yeah, but I think I mean,
Vinny, I think what our counselor is saying, he's heard enough.
Well, you heard enough, but I've been here 47 years, probably
Vinny,
before you were born.
Mr. LaSavia, I understand. We'll talk further.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And one last thing. The United States and Obama, if we have all our countries together in peace and put all our scientists together, maybe we can cure cancer. No, they fight. So let's get our council to work together and smile at each other.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Mr. LaSavia. Tell your brother we said hello. Okay, seeing no one else coming to the mic, we closed the public hearing. We got there. 10 o'clock, folks. Next thing we have is a presentation of recognition. I believe that belongs to you.
I don't believe that Mr. Moffett is here. Do you know, Jerry, what happened with that? Is he? Okay. I believe that your office, not you, was I don't know. Okay, so
you could hold it till an evening when he's here. I think that's wiser.
yeah, I mean, this is a nice thing, and I think it's great. He's a teacher in town, lives in town. Can we?
Yeah, table it.
Table it.
I think that makes a world of sense.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Next thing is public hearing, final adoption, and I am going to ask Ms. Lucina, once again, read the ordinance by title.
Bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements and the acquisition of new, additional, or replacement equipment and machinery, new communication and signal system equipment, new information technology equipment, and new automotive vehicles, including original apparatus and equipment, in, by, and for the Township of Scotch Plains in the County of Union, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $1,525,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
Thank you. May I have a motion to open the discussion on this ordinance be opened? Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to move for
Public hearing?
discussion, public hearing on this ordinance.
Be opened. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a vote on the call to have a public hearing. Please, Lucina?
Just do that by voice.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, would anyone like to address the council with reference to this ordinance? Seeing no one, I think we've discussed it already, or a lot of it. Are there any council comments? Thank you, sir. 10 o'clock. We'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Move that the public hearing be closed.
All those
Second.
in favor? Second, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, here we go. Comments from the council? Any comments from the council?
I just want to thank the manager for taking the time to speak with me on the issue, and then again to meet with the mayor and I believe it was on the 10th of July. I don't know that everybody, it wasn't a love fest, but it was a good conversation, and it was productive and definitely led us in it needed to happen. So I've already spoken to a lot of the different pieces. The very nice thing that we have available to us now that we did not have available previously is the architect's report. Given the fact that, to my knowledge, unless something has changed, I do not believe that there are 4 votes in favor of this ordinance as it stands. I would just ask that in addition to the changes that we have discussed, that the public be made aware that there is a request on my part, and I believe that the mayor supports this as well, to include the recommendations of the manager as far as the funds for the initial repairs to Shady Rest in the first bond ordinance. I alluded to that. I alluded to that before. I would not like to imply that the manager is not in favor of making a recommendation for repairs or bonding for those repairs. I just think that the discrepancy at this point as far as that's concerned is whether or not that be included in this particular bond ordinance.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, returning to me, Mayor, I think that in fairness, it's incumbent upon you,
I think that's right.
as someone
I would
who
agree.
opposed the ordinance, to speak.
I absolutely agree. And contrary to our last meeting, I think you're absolutely right. It's incumbent on me to tell you. 2 weeks ago, Councilwoman Gillenella and I met with the manager, Mr. Gimes. I've been trying to do that, as many of you know, I publicly stated, for weeks. But we got together and we had a pretty good conversation. Certainly, not sure if the manager agrees with everything we were speaking to, but basically tell them the things that we could embrace. And I'm just going to go through them. I'm not going to bore you with more details after 10 o'clock. Fully supportive of the library air conditioning system. In fact, I was one of those who was on that early, saying these units come from a distant land and they're long overdue to be replaced. And we believe that that's something that is necessary, maintaining the infrastructure of our community. Fully supported the police department's request. That's life safety. Similarly, that applies to the fire department as well. The Terry Lou Zoo I alluded to earlier, and I believe it's $86,000 that was looked to be spent there. We agreed with that. felt that the Brookside Park and the work that was proposed as well should be done. I mean, these are two projects, particularly Terry Luzou, former partner of the Rec Commission Chairman Mike Dempsey and I had discussed years ago. So, Terry Luzou, Brookside Park. The Department of Public Works has a need to fix potholes in the winter. There's something out there called a hot patch. It's something that frustrates most of us, that they come out and they'll patch a road, and the next rain, that patch is gone. So anyone knows anything about road repair, I've just learned a lot. The hot patch is something that we would approve, and there's monies in this capital budget for it. That said, we expect and would ask, you've heard a lot of support of it, that not in a subsequent ordinance, but in this ordinance, that we finally find and put the funding to begin work on restoring the Shady Rest so it gets a new roof sooner than later. I'm sure our rec department would be very supportive of that. It's been under their management for well over a decade. The proposal that I've just shared with you is less than half of the capital ordinance that was originally proposed, which was $1,525,000. My numbers come in somewhere around $700,000. As I've said with you in the past, you know, capital ordinance is debt. I think the township has enough debt, and while I'm not adverse to spending money, I recognize, as we heard from one of our citizens before, you can't get everything every time. And the things that I've deferred or made believe that we can defer till the subsequent time when we can do further evaluation, when we look to share services even within our own departments, amongst our own departments, specifically the rec department on equipment procurements at our Department of Public Works, is something that I would encourage us to pursue. So, Deputy Mayor, presented that 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry that it wasn't, I would have expected it to have been on the conference meeting so that we could have had the discussion in advance. It is not. And so, please, everyone else comment, and I'll call the roll call. I have nothing else, no further comments.
Mayor, if I may, given that the majority of this governing body were not privy to your conversations with the township manager, nor were we provided with your insights and recommendations prior to this evening.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask the manager who was in that meeting to perhaps give his perspective on the meeting, the items that were being discussed, and your recommendations as a result of that.
I would just share with you, just so you know, that both of us shared with Mr. Giles. This was our recommendation. It's you are to convey it to the body of the council. Just so you know, we didn't do that secretively. We had our meeting like I expected we would, and then 2 weeks ago we had asked that be conveyed. There was nothing there that should not have been.
I did, for the record, speak with Councilman Jones and Marcus. It's possible we didn't speak. I guess we didn't believe you. So, contrary to popular belief, we don't actually speak every day, apparently. But Councilman Marcus and Jones were generally aware of the nature of the meeting and the context of the meeting and what occurred. With that, I do have several comments I'm going to make, most of which are prepared in response to the proposal that was put forth, which I will say from the outset I don't agree with. I don't agree with cherry picking items out of the bond ordinance, and I'm going to give you several reasons why. I think what's been going on with this bond ordinance has now started to hinder the delivery of services to this community, and my opinion is if it doesn't pass in its entirety, it will continue to do that. Since February, the entire council has had a binder of over 100 pages of documents detailing the 2014 capital request with explanations and specifications for nearly every single request. In the interest of fiscal restraint, recognizing that the times are tough and we have to be smart in the way we spend our money, my office, along with the staff and every single department head that was involved in the process, submitted a capital bond request that was one of the lowest in recent memory. In addition, this assisted the council had not only had a lowest one, they had more detailed information on this bond in February than they ever had in any of the past bond ordinances. So February went by, April went by, March went by, April, most of May, weeks and months, numerous public hearings, department heads appearing before the council talking about their budget request. Not one suggestion, not one request, not one hint by any member of the governing body that this ordinance would be voted down. In the public hearing, when it finally came, after it was introduced unanimously, it was voted down. No comments, no suggestions, nothing was raised. Okay, that was stunning to me, because people have said to me in this community in the last several weeks and months since this happened, did you have any idea this was going to be voted down? No, nothing. Because since February there were hundreds of pages of documents that nobody ever commented on. Small comments, passing comments here and there, but never a hint that this was going to be voted down. So it's not until July, 5 months after the council received their packets, long after the multiple public meetings, that I was informed that now not only is there an opposition to a few items, there's an opposition to half the bond ordinance. 15 of the 26 items. You know, if it was said to me there's one or two we might have overlooked and we want to make a change, okay, I get that. Fair enough. But 15 of the 26 are now suddenly opposed after the bond ordinance was voted down, and not once prior to that were any of those items ever mentioned. Not once was I ever given a hint that this ordinance would be voted down. So then, of course, I have to take into consideration the items that were, the mayor stated that so eloquently that they agreed with. You know, it was predictable to me. Police, fire, library, they relate to the police and the fire. 2 of the 8 requests in the recreation department and about 8% of the items in the DPW. I think it's selective, I think it's disturbing, and I think it pits department versus department. And I think it puts politics into this bond ordinance that never should have happened. And that to me is unfortunate. I don't believe it's an accident on what departments are supported and what departments are opposed. I don't believe it's an accident that every request from my office was declined. I don't believe it's an accident that nearly every request from the DPW has been declined, and I don't believe it's an accident that nearly every request, with the exception of some items that were mentioned in past speeches, were declined, based on the numerous personal attacks that have been levied against the 3 department heads responsible in those towns. There was a bucket truck, $30,000 in repairs. That's not supported. An air chamber blew on one of our vehicles that was pushed off on the side of the road. The leaf pickup, I've heard numerous times how that has to be better, while the claws are now being declined. A line striper to save money is now being declined. The modernization of our local government to fix what I believe to be an embarrassingly bad finance system we have in this community is being declined because I didn't consult with a group of people that have no experience working in municipal government. We hear a lot about finance and we hear a lot about municipal restraint. So I'm going to give you some financial facts. This is one of the lowest bond ordinances in recent memory in Scotch Plains. The proposed budget increase was the lowest in over a decade. The state aid as a percentage of our budget is an exceptional figure, under 10%. With respect to our ability to bond as a community, the net debt as a percentage of equalized budget is less than 0.5% at 0.479. Anything less than 2.5 is considered excellent. I'd say we were okay. The debt service as a percentage of budget is 8.2%. Above 15 is considered risky. I think we're doing pretty good there. The unreserved fund balance as a percentage of our budget is at 2.96. That should be higher. That should be over 8%, which is why I resisted, what I believe was a gimmick to take $80,000 and flat the tax rate, because I want to build more unreserved surplus. Our municipal audits in this community have been exceptional, which demonstrates that this community has been run in a fiscally responsible manner for decades. The notion we have to slash this bond ordinance for austerity purposes simply just does not hold water and is not accurate. So I'm going to close with this. I understand that it's hard to say that you're against the changes that are being proposed because they're police and they're fire and they're public safety, and some of them are, very few of them are recreation and very few of them are public works. But I don't support that, so I'll defer to the majority, or in this case, it has to be the supermajority of the council to do what they choose. I don't support that because I think it's unfair, and I know for sure that our police and our fire and our library people and our not so much recreation because nothing is essentially being improved with the exception of 2 things. They're going to see through that. okay? They're not gonna be, I don't want my employees being used as pawns, and I think that's what's happening. So in closing, there has been detailed documentation since February on this ordinance, and none of this information has been coming up to me sooner. Not one hint at the multiple public meetings that any of this would be opposed. And almost 5 months later, not 1 or 2 items, not even 3 or 4, half the bond ordinance is being told that it's opposed. Okay, that was stunning. That inclination was never given to me at any point. I don't think anybody wanted to be in this position because I'm honestly not sure that most people realize a 3-2 vote would defeat the ordinance. But now it's time. It's time to move on. In my opinion, it's time to pass the ordinance and it's time to vote yes. I'm not confident that's going to happen, frankly. I know that's not going to happen. And, you know, that's troubling to me. With that, that's all I have to say.
Okay. I'd like to call the roll.
I haven't made a comment.
Oh, you, okay, I didn't hear you.
Nor have I.
ask it. I didn't hear you ask to.
Yeah, well, I would like to comment. I'd like to commend Mr. Jimes on his remarks. I think he accurately described the situation here. I think for those in the audience and at home, if you've been aware of what's been happening here, those are the facts. I've supported this capital bond ordinance as presently constituted from the beginning. I don't want to sit here and repeat myself. We've had several meetings where this matter was discussed. I'm looking at my own comments in the minutes of prior meetings, and I just hate to say the same thing time and time again. But unfortunately, I'm in the position of, once again, having to state an opinion on this issue, which has been dragged on and on and on now for the last several meetings since May. As Mr. Jimes indicated, we began this process back in February. We go through the same process every year. And all council members have the opportunity to attend meetings, listen to the proposed capital budget, raise questions, express their opinions, voice whatever concerns they may have about the ordinance. We went through that process. Comments were made, but nothing, as Mr. Jimes indicated, to suggest that there would be any opposition to any aspect of this capital bond ordinance. So what happens? Well, we get to the time where we're to vote on adopting this ordinance, and suddenly, out of the blue, Mayor and Councilwoman Gellanella vote against adopting the ordinance. As Mr. Jimes indicated, it seemed to be a stunning outcome. And I agree with that assessment. When you don't give any reasons for your opposition to something, and it seems to be done for a motivation that just can't be explained, defies logic and all reason and rationale, what conclusion can you draw other than there has to be some other motivation, personal or political, for opposing a measure? And that's the only conclusion that I can draw from this whole episode. It's sad, it's unfortunate, it's to the detriment of our town. It impedes our progress to move forward on necessary capital purchases, not just for this year. This is a plan over the next 5, 7, 10 years. And this is part of the process. These are not purchases that are just being made for use for 2014. They go well beyond that. It's just incredible to me that the explanation that's been given for opposing this measure can be said with a straight face by those that oppose it. It's just unbelievable to me. It's ludicrous. It makes no sense. We have council people who proclaim themselves to be supporters of recreation or supporters of the police. We have important life safety requests that go to the police department, fire department, rescue squad. Important purchases that affect our delivery of services in the DPW, the recreation department, the library. To sit here now and suddenly come up with justifications for opposition without ever giving an explanation prior to voting against that measure just doesn't make sense. It defies all logic. You know, we've heard calls being made from those who oppose this measure for improvements to our infrastructure, our IT capabilities here in town. Well, this capital bond ordinance addresses that need. Now when the time comes to cast your vote to allow us to move forward as a township to make these improvements in several of our department areas, it's voted down. I mean, does that make sense? Doesn't make sense to me. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and repeat everything I've said previously about it. But I'm extremely disturbed by what's happened here. I think the explanation given and the justifications for opposing this capital bond ordinance are just simply bogus and untrue. And they're simply an attempt to justify action that was taken for the sake of disagreeing for whatever motivation the persons that voted against this measure want to use. So it is what it is. It doesn't move forward tonight. It doesn't move forward tonight. But it's a cost to the town. It's a cost to our residents. It's going to affect our services. You know, if you're going to complain about the services that we deliver to our town, I don't know how you do that when you're unwilling to give our township and our residents the tools that are needed to deliver those services that are required by our town and required by our residents. So this is one that I just cannot understand, and it's just completely hard to figure. So it is what it is, and the outcome will be whatever the outcome will be. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, I support this ordinance. It should be passed, and it should be passed without any further delay and injury to our township and to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sir?
Somebody didn't get the memo. I mean, I'm reading in the paper about these new candidates we have all excited about serving the township because they want to improve leaf pickup and snow removal and fix potholes. And yet, your own people are voting against that. So I don't understand how someone can say that all of these things are lacking and that we can do better, and yet there's no communication where that's what you're saying and they're voting against it. You know, I read words from the committee chair about the candidate that was put forward initially that got the promotion at work. Once again, she says that ultimately we should be focused on doing work to improve town. Leaf pickup, there was equipment. Potholes, there's equipment. Snow removal, there's equipment. Improving communications with the residents that would allow the town to track input, feedback from the residents till they're completed. Software for our finance and accounting. If our CFO got hit by a bus tomorrow, we have such an antiquated software for our financial system that it would take months to train someone where it should only take weeks to train someone on a modern piece of software that most people use in municipal finance. So I go back to the initial assertion, and that is, never once was anything expressed to the manager or to the other members of this council that there was an issue or a problem. Admittedly, the night of the vote, when it was defeated, I'm sure everyone up here is aware of the fact that it requires a 2/3 majority to bond, but it didn't happen, and it didn't get brought to everyone's attention. Who's responsible for that? Who knows? But then what I think ended up happening was, rather than saying, made a mistake, let's reconsider this, we spent another month waiting for it to be told, what's the problem? Where do you not agree with this? What specifically? You know, I mean, ultimately, there was reference to the fact that, you know, there was a request made of the new head of DPW to come back, but that request was made during the discussions regarding the regular budget, not the capital bond ordinance. And I think if you go back and look at the minutes from the meeting, you'll see that that's the case. So it's all great, the smoke and the mirrors and the obfuscation, and we gotta wait, and we can't tell you because it's super secret. We need a decoder ring before we can sit down with the manager, and yet unwilling to share it with the other people on this council who have been elected to make those decisions. And then you mix in the comedy of quotes that are attributed to the candidates that are complete contradiction to what we're trying to do with the bond ordinance. Like I said, I think y'all need to figure out a better way to get the memos back and forth, because there seems to be a lot of contradictions as to what you say and what you do. And I think that's a shame, because in the end, it hurts the people of the town. I can understand voting against the budget. You do that, the mayor's done that every year except for last year, because we can do better. Okay. But when you step in the way of a 5, 6, 7-year plan that the town has mapped out prior to the manager and with consultation to this manager, all you're doing is obstructing progress. And I think the people in town are going to see through that. I mean, I would, and I'm a taxpayer like anybody else. So, you know, I support this bond ordinance as it is. I think the town needs these things. In relative terms, 1.5 million is a lot of money, but it's not anywhere close to 3.7 that they decided we needed to spend last year. What do we have to show for that? So, like I said, I support this bond ordinance as it's written, and my only recommendation is that you get your story straight, because it's going to be a very, very long fall trying to defend the absolute amateur approach to this capital bond ordinance.
Thank you for your comments. Would you like to make a comment?
I'll reserve comment for now, thanks.
You'll reserve comment? Okay, Janelle?
I made my comment, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this means that we'll have to go around and around again. But some of the...
I'm sorry, point of order. Are we all going to be given
You'll all
a
be given
second
chance
opportunity?
If you'd like to. Sure.
I think
It's
that's...
10:30, we got plenty of time.
I think that's what I just spoke to. But what I wanted to maybe touch on is this idea that there was not communication until July. I can't speak for anyone other than myself. Other than the technology piece, I believe I have communicated very clearly what my concerns were with the capital budget. I don't feel that I need to spend a great deal of time defending myself or defending my vote. I'm proud of my vote. I've been proud of my vote. I've said that repeatedly. What I will say is this: property tax bills went home again. You can have as much debate and as much discussion about operating budget, capital budget, level of service. I have worked in some level of government, whether it is school administration or county government, since I was in college. The level of service does not need to be reflective on the taxes that are levied on the people living in a community. Spending more money does not make better government. One of the periodicals that was sent to our home very recently in a packet cites, I believe it was Maplewood, for using an app to communicate requests to the government so that people are able to bring different issues forward, communicate more freely with members of the municipality, the administration. The big piece there is this: we had an opportunity to try something that was free. We didn't try it for 1 month. We didn't try it for 2 months. We decided to try it not at all. We picked something more expensive. I can understand if we have exhausted all options, spending money to make government more efficient. But if there is a way to continue to serve the residents of Scotch Plains and to increase the level of service that we have available to them without increasing the tax levy, I think that's something we need to be looking really closely at. We can talk about numbers, we can talk about 2.5, we can talk about all of the different pieces, but what I'll say to you is this: the best analogy that I can come up with is, if you want to sit down and you want to buy a home, you will have realtors, mortgage brokers tell you that you can afford X number of dollars. If I had listened when we purchased our home in Scotch Plains to the recommendations about what my husband and I could afford when we purchased a house, we would have been in dire, dire straits right now. This is a time period where people really need to learn to live within their means. We were unable to influence the majority of this council to spend more conservatively in the operating budget. The one piece where we were finally able to get some attention and try to bring some relief to the taxpayers was in the capital bond ordinance. I'm sorry that people feel that we did not communicate effectively, but it is hard to communicate when you can't get people to speak with you. I will not apologize for representing the people of Scotch Plains. I won't do it. I have 2+ years left on this term. I can hate coming here more than I can begin to tell you because of some of the things that go on at these meetings, but I won't stop doing it, and I will not stop fighting for what I believe in. We can do a better job of giving better government to the people of Scotch Plains by holding our employees accountable, by doing evaluations, by having better communication, by using our resources more wisely. You talk about a 5-year plan, a 5-year capital plan, that should be available for the public. The public should have access to that on the website. There also should be an inventory of what machinery is available. We have 2 different DPW departments in this township. I would be very interested for the public to have access to what exact equipment we have in each of the DPWs, given the resources that are available to us as far as staffing. You tell us you need another person to get the job done, that's fine. But when you start to have more equipment than you have bodies, there's a problem. That's it. and I have to use the ladies' room. I know it's problematic for some members of the council when I leave the dais, but I need to excuse myself for a minute.
Thank you, you're excused. Further commentary?
Sadly, I'm just going to simply say that
Just,
I can't-
Councilman, if I may, just one quick point. The six-year
Yeah.
capital plan is available on the website. It's an addendum to the budget every single year.
Your comments?
Sadly, I just can't even make sense out of what I'm hearing. I mean, if you folks can understand what happened here, you folks at home, well, somebody please explain it to me. Because I've been here and I've seen what has happened. I've been here for the last 4 years. And I've seen what's happened over the last 4 years. And this explanation for this outcome is just completely erroneous, completely bogus. It's a disservice to the community. And it's nothing more than an attempt to try to justify a negative vote for the sake of making a negative vote after the fact. Plain and simple. That's all it is.
Thank you. Follow-up comment?
No, I'm with Councilman
talked out.
Marcus. I mean, ultimately, it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, absolutely amazing.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
amazing to me that with a straight face, you come before the town to justify a simple mistake,
I
a
don't know who
simple
made it.
oops.
Thank you for your,
And, excuse me,
I thought you were finished.
a little more civility would be appreciated. Thank you.
Coming from you, I appreciate that.
So ultimately, when I hear, once again, the fluffery and the puffery of no real answer, I'm with Councilman Marcus. I don't know what to say, but I go back to the fact that your own party said we need to improve in the areas that we proposed improvement. There's a disconnect.
Thank you. Please?
The hour's late. There's been a lot of comment. There's been so much comment, I feel obligated to contribute at least a little comment, and just give perspective of how I see this whole process having transpired and where we're at, and why I'm voting and supporting this ordinance, as I continue to do. First off, this ordinance is appropriate and prudent, and I support the initiatives in it because they are important initiatives for the town. Look, nobody likes property taxes, I get that, but you do have to spend some money to deliver the services, and these priorities, as detailed extensively in the package we received back in February, are all important for critical services of the town. You know, I got involved on this and ran for office because I wanted to see our town move forward, and I'm saddened, frankly, that we're not able to see a lot of progress that we ought to be able to have as a result of this situation and the opposition to this bond ordinance. I just want to provide a little bit of context for folks on this. And from a procedural standpoint, this ordinance has been introduced. It's time for us to vote on it. It's a second time round. That first happened back in April and May. And you know, the one thing which is new to me here at this meeting since the last meeting is that for the first time I actually have concrete list of items that I've written down here that the folks who have been opposed to this for a long time are now enunciating. But from a procedural perspective, we couldn't now go and amend this ordinance even if we wanted to and pass just the subset of items. You would have to, you know, run this through bond council again. You'd have to reintroduce. You'd have to wait the 30 days. Then you could pass things. Then there's 20 days before things can go into effect. Best case scenario as a result of this opposition is you're coming up on the end of the year before you could even start work on these things. And a lot of these things you can't do in the middle of the winter. So this opposition has effectively killed most of these items until next year. You know, where does that leave us? I mean, it leaves us with a bond ordinance that's up for a vote tonight. There's many critical items in here for the progress of the town, and I just cross my fingers that perhaps somebody will say, you know what, we've got to, for the good of the town, we've got to move this forward. But again, I'll be supporting this bond ordinance, and there's really nothing more to say.
Thank you. So we'll just close this out by just very, very, very brief comments, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm sure most of you got your tax bills recently, and they didn't look pretty. They haven't looked pretty for a long time. And yes, Mr. Vestine, I have been the most outspoken person when it comes to not having increases in taxes when I know revenue is sitting on the sideline that could prevent it. Just like this year, where we could have had no tax increase, folks. You saw your tax bills. Just let me frame it for you all. We don't have a revenue problem in this town. We have a spending problem. I've heard some people talk about that earlier. You know, Mr. Jones says we can't redo this. Of course we can redo it. You know, when I hear comments like that, I think of General Motors. No, we can't change that ignition switch because it would take too much time and it'd be too costly. Well, let me tell you something. They should have changed the ignition switch. And the fact of the matter is, you know, had phone calls been returned to me as the mayor, you know, people would have known a lot sooner what our principal objections here have been. You know, our candidates, because now we're making it very political, speak about improving services. No one said they want to spend more of your taxpayers' money. You want to do things more efficiently. Tell me who amongst us doesn't do that. When you go shopping, you know, I guarantee you there's not a person in town that doesn't look to see where orange juice might get a better value. You want to do the same things. It's your money, and yes, we live here too, and nobody has been more outspoken about trying to keep our taxes lower than I believe I have been. I've got the longest tenure on this council, and I started that way, and I will finish this way. Mr. Fred, we can do better. That's all I have to say. So I'm going to ask for the roll call to be called. Oh, well, before we get there, I'm going to ask for the deputy mayor to move that the ordinance be adopted.
Sure. I would like to move that this ordinance be adopted on first reading and be advertised.
Second.
Second reading. And
We've
be
been there
advertised
before.
according to law in the Scotch Plains Times, and that copies be available in the clerk's office and posted on the bulletin board.
That's right.
Wait a second.
You're all lost here. Here. Second and final reading. That's what you
This
want
is
to
a second and final reading.
Yeah, we're all confused. Here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right, move that this ordinance be
Late.
adopted on second and final reading and it's come up so many times, folks, I apologize for being confused. I move that this ordinance be adopted on second and final reading and be advertised according to law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lucina, would you please call the roll once again?
Mrs. Giovanella?
Nay.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Marcus?
Aye.
Mr. Vastine?
Aye.
Mayor Glover?
Nay. Okay, next item up on the council is approval of council minutes. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I'd like to move for approval the council meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2014 and June 17th, 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Manager's report, I think we've done that, right? Reports of special committees?
Yes, Mayor. As you know, I'm the liaison to the Raritan Valley Line Coalition.
Yes.
They recently had a meeting in Westfield that I unfortunately was not able to attend because of a work conflict. But I do know that they had announced an expansion of some of the off-peak schedule. I wanted to ask the manager if we were ever able to put that list up on the website for signing the petition. Okay. But I think it's still important for us to continue to support the effort and so that we might be able to expand the number of trains that have the direct one-seat ride, or at least the one-seat ride, not necessarily direct. It still has a stop in Newark. But that's what I have.
Thank you, it's very good. I'm glad you shared that with us. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no one, next item up is new business consent agenda.
Mayor, because of the lateness of the hour, you can do these resolutions without reading.
No, but I want them read. It's okay. Now, just quickly, I'd like the manager to comment on it because I may have a question. So but I generally would agree with you. New business consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the new business consent agenda?
At what point
I'd
do
like to move for approval the new business consent agenda, resolutions 2014-104 through resolution 2014-111
Is there a
for
second?
approval.
Second, please.
I'll second that.
Can you just go through them just quickly? I mean, a lot of them, are no-brainers.
As mayor, I apologize. I would like 111 pulled off the consent agenda to
there
be
you go.
discussed
Hold on.
separately.
Which one, sir?
111.
Okay.
104 is Village Park. That's memorializing the discussion that we had at the conference meeting in May to pay Village Park their claims. 105 and 106 are liens from the health office and our code official office. We've done work on properties that were unmaintained, and it's pretty customary that we put a lien. 107 is the tax appeal recommendation from our tax assessor and our tax appeal attorney.
Thank you.
108 was a repair to a validator. I just want to make sure I get the exact
I
wording
just want to know what that was. That's what I was concerned about, Mr. Jones.
It's called a variable frequency drive. It is a pretty extensive piece of equipment that runs the sprinkler systems at Scotch Hills, the golf course, and it was just broken, and it was causing the sprinkler system basically to go into chaos.
Thank you.
The liquor license are all in order, been reviewed by
Right.
the chief of police, everything's good to go there.
And I think we added one this morning, right?
The NS60 was added.
Right.
I think,
This morning.
This morning.
This morning,
Yeah,
okay.
so we're all good there.
change order for the 911 system. Naturally, it happens a lot when you're going into the building, installing these things. You find out certain pieces of equipment are not compatible with what you're trying to do. That occurred when we looked at the generator. The chief can certainly respond to that if you have any questions on that. And
Okay, so we're going to move 104 through 110. So we've had a motion, we've had it seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
It was requested that we move the resolution 2014-111 to be a separate vote. Mr. Johns, well, for you first, please. Would you move the
Yes,
resolution?
I'd like to move for approval Resolution 2014-111, supporting the International Residential Code requirement for fire sprinklers in 1- and 2-family dwellings and townhouses.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A little discussion, please, Mr. Giles.
this is at the request of the building official who also serves as the president of the New Jersey Building Officials Association, an acronym, that's something to that effect. And basically, the short of it is the law, if passed, I think it was passed by the Assembly, I'm not sure about the Senate as of now, would require all newly built single and two-family homes to have a fire suppression sprinkler system installed.
I think there was some reference to how many lives are lost because of maybe a lack of sprinkler system in the request that Mr. Acosta made. It was significant, correct?
I mean, with fires, yeah, I don't remember the exact number.
But I
whether or
think
not
that
it's
was,
because of the sprinkler system.
that's what was prompting. I don't expect you to have that read at the tip of your hands. So, we have a motion, we have
Could I-
motion.
could
Do you
I-
have any comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Do we know what the added cost to building a home would be as a result of these sprinklers?
I mean, I've read articles that estimate anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 on a home. So it's hard to say. I mean, each home's going to be different based on the size and the scope of the home. But I'm sure some houses could probably be $15,000 depending on the size.
I've heard numbers as low as $2,000 to $3,000. So it's an anecdote. Obviously, it affects new home. I guess Mr. Bastine And I believe they may have even given some estimates, Mr. Johns, of what it might cost.
Can I ask a
I may be
question?
wrong. Go ahead.
What is the trend in this as far as municipalities go? And, just as a comment, I understand this is a building code issue, but again, we're really referring to a fire issue. I just want to renew my
Fire.
request to meet as the fire liaison once ever with the volunteers and with the chief.
So would you like to table this until we have that discussion? You can.
I'm asking what the trend is first.
I don't know what the trend is. Do you, Mr. Giles?
I don't know what other municipalities
You
are
know,
doing.
we said the assembly passed
The
this.
assembly passed it. I mean, it's not a requirement, obviously, in the state.
course.
I would be surprised if any municipality actually has this law on their local books.
Yeah.
Yet, assuming it passes or doesn't pass.
What did
or
the assembly pass exactly?
Basically, I'm sorry, what did they pass?
Yeah, why?
That all new single-family and two-family homes would be required to have fire suppression system / sprinkler system, and manufactured homes and homes not connected to public waters would be exempt.
So, I'm sorry, excuse my, Jeff, why if the, it hasn't passed, it hasn't, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, my thought on this, just real quickly, is that, it's obviously a very noble thing. I understand the goal of it, saving lives. The simple question, well, 2 points here. First is that this isn't something that's before our council. This is just a resolution whereby we would be calling on the legislature to do something. But there's nothing in here that speaks in detail about the cost of this from the initial cost perspective, and in particular the ongoing maintenance of these systems. So look, if the cost was reasonable, maybe I could be behind it. If the cost is too high, I'm concerned with the cost to people. So without all those facts, I can't support this.
My level of discomfort is not having spoken to the fire department on this, to hear their thoughts.
All right, well, I would suggest that we table it. So may I have a motion to table?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Anyone? I'll second it. So Mr. Jones, would you like to second it? Since you said you're looking for additional information? Because I support it, quite frankly, but I'm indifference. I think it saves lives, but I respect the fact that you need more information, and you did have some concerns. So I'll defer to you, Mr. Jones. I'll retract. Does anyone else want to second this?
I thought you did.
I retracted it because I am supportive of what this is proposing, which is supporting this residential code. We're not establishing it in our community.
But you just seconded tabling it for.
I just because indifference that people want additional information.
Sounds like the table fails, right? Nobody seconded?
We've got to vote on whether it gets tabled. There's a motion on the table to table.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Lair.
So then we have a vote.
Okay?
Can we back up?
I
I'm going to vote
agree.
to second the motion to table.
I agree with you. That's the prudent. Thank you, sir, Deputy Mayor. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call.
Mrs. Giovanella?
Wait,
This is to table.
Motion.
It's a table.
aye?
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Marcus?
Aye.
Mr. Vastine?
Aye.
Mayor Glover?
Aye. Maybe we can put this on for the next meeting, Mr. Gines. You'll reach out, try to get some answers, everyone, please. Okay, next item up is, may I have a motion on the bill, to move the bill list?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move for approval the bill list dated July 22nd, 2014, in the amount of $13,206,434.61.
Okay, before we take a vote, does anyone have any questions? Because I do have some questions.
I have,
Let me just make one thing clear.
Yes, sir.
The law about bill lists, and we can get into this a little bit more, but essentially, we've been doing this for years, but governing bodies really don't have the ability to say no on bill lists.
Well, that's what I want to question. And by the way, people have voted no, so you've been with us a long time. Well, you've sat here and people have voted no. So now if we're changing,
There's a recent case that came out.
okay, so if there's a recent case, then,
I wanted just you to be aware of it.
okay, well, I think what we're trying to do is if we can get some clarification and we can resolve it, then we can all vote on it, you know? And if we don't, and then if we don't, if we don't, and someone elects not to, then people won't get paid. By and large, probably 90% of them, which would be ridiculous. Thank you. Okay, the only thing I just, Jerry and
I
I
have some questions.
Okay, go ahead first.
Okay.
Heads up,
Jerry,
because they're coming your way.
At the last meeting, I asked about, there was a course that was on there. Do we have any kind of accounting as far as where we're at with, allowing employee courses, policies? Have you looked at that at all? And were you able to get an answer on that course?
The personnel manual of the township essentially is the policy I've been using. People put a request in to me to take a course, and I approve the purchase order or I decline the purchase order. After they go to the course, or session or seminar, not just course, they're required to submit some type of memorandum to me explaining what they did and what it was and how it was beneficial to the township.
But is there no cap on how many conventions, courses? I mean, these things can get very expensive. We're tallying and lodging and transportation and meals.
There is no cap.
How often do we approve the personnel manual as policy? Is there a law on that, Jeff? It hasn't been before us since I've been on here.
Yeah, I mean, it would only be when something's gonna change. I mean, and that doesn't preclude me from instituting a change. I mean, the manual also says that the management can set policies, without, votes of the governing body on some issues, but certainly, if you want to change a policy of the township, you have the right to do that anytime.
Because we had, on this one that I noticed, another $850 in conventions. The 500, I think, was for the annual Chiefs Convention for, payable to Trump Taj Mahal. And then the next line item, it wasn't clear about what it was for. There was a $350 item that didn't, go through the whole line.
That was police department as well?
And who was that for?
No, I'm asking you, is that?
I have no idea. Oh, you know what, I don't know, Jared. Let me look. It was right underneath the 500, so you're right, it's probably the same department.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that at the moment. I'd have to.
It didn't, it cut off, it didn't say what it was for. It's,
What page is it on?
sorry, I closed it out.
Looking at one of the flaws in our finance system in that this is in as a JPEG Adobe document and not a document like every other document we have on this list, by the way.
So it's, excuse me, I stand corrected, 325, and it's the line item above. It says New Jersey State Association of, and it doesn't continue, what it is.
That's the conference registration.
Annual training conference for, and then $500. So that's, so 825, and then there would probably be an additional, some meal reimbursements and some other things later. I mean, Chief, you don't attend all of our meetings, and I'm sorry if it's slightly awkward for you to be here while I'm asking about this, but I ask about this consistently, regardless of department, because there's a lot of hotel bills on here, a lot of conventions, and it's an issue.
Well, what happens too is you look at a conference like the League of Municipalities, for our department heads that need to get CEUs, even though you might spend $300-400 per person, it's a lot cheaper for them to go down to the conference for 3 days as opposed to taking multiple days off, driving to New Brunswick, driving to Lawrenceville, wherever they happen to be. So in the long run, that ends up being cheaper.
All right, and then just the last The last questions I have to do with the road paving work. I feel like these are higher numbers than I was anticipating. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I'd have to go back and look. I mean, I have all my reports, so I have them down.
75, 210, another 75,000, 210,000, another 22,000, and then various capital improvements. There's $21,000 for line striping. So I don't know if some of that's roads and some of it's parks.
Yeah, that's a mix of both departments. I mean, I have a detailed spreadsheet. I can get that for you.
All right, when you can, if you could just email me and see where we're at as far as the road cost information, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no one else. I'm just going to have a few follow-up questions to that. Last time we talked about refresher courses, you know, you were going to get some information.
Yes, I approved it.
Okay, you approved them, and was it, you were going to, we trying to understand the policy. If you fail a class, do you get to take it again?
It's generally how it goes, yes.
And as long as you approve it, a refresher goes, okay, that clarifies that. I just want to follow up with her road work question. Can we just get a summary for our next meeting that shows what the original proposals, resolutions were for the road work, what we've spent to date? Let's specifically, let's say, you know, well, the firms that she just alluded to. So we know this is what the council approved, this is what the bill came in at. You and I discussed earlier, so there's no surprise that I'm still waiting. You say you'll get it to me, an explanation of why we didn't pay that $30,000 on time for the car. You said to me that you'll get me something soon, so this is a good thing. That's the one where we potentially could have had it repossessed. At least that's what they told me. Stump grindings, just to follow up, you know, I see we have $3,500 here, or $600 to High Tech. You had said that it would be done soon, that we were going to do Cooper and Martine. Those stumps are still very prominent there, Jerry. I just think it's a safety issue that if High Tech is the guy you're using, maybe you bring them in.
They've done an analysis and they've been driving around town. The DPW has been driving around. It's definitely a budgetary issue as well in that line item, so we're trying to move some things around.
Okay, and I just have, this is just, you know, I see that we made a payment to Wade, Preston, and Band. I guess this is for the concert series, and for $5,000 for a 1.5-hour performance. I would just like you to go back and look at that. I don't think we ever spent $5,000 for a group to come in and play for us. I mean, 2,000 was probably our limit. So while they were very good, you know, we do try, it is taxpayer dollars. To spend 3,000 more than we had spent in prior years, I mean, on average, I think that was pretty excessive. So if you could, you know, just oversee that and see why that occurred. I mean, what?
It was the band who...
Hold on, sir. It was the first concert. It's Billy Joel, knockoff band. As I said,
I was aware of that cost when it came in. I knew it was higher than normal. The department,
this is considerably higher. This is
Yes,
over
I know.
150% higher.
and the recreation department felt that they were a quality enough band that deserved the money. And
Well, you know,
I think
in
they
the
did a good
past,
job, and I agree.
in the past, we used to, as you know, I'm not stating anything new here. We used to get contributions for these, 'cause this is all taxpayer money, this $5,000. So, spending smarter. And then I have, just, Jerry, bear with me. We talked about this too. This has to do with making a full payment to that firm that putting up that pavilion, and that job is not done. And I don't have all the background of what all the problems are. I've read your emails of a job stoppage, but why are we paying, as in full disclosure, folks, he and I spoke about it earlier, and I said I was gonna bring up, why would we pay this money to them when this thing is stopped and they haven't finished their work? And we pay it, they could just bolt, for all I know.
Well, much of the work has been complete. There's just some small, I think, trim work that has to be done. For all intents and purposes, aside from the trim work, it's complete. So they submitted a bill.
This is full payment, Jerry. I never knew anybody who did work in their home and paid somebody out when, especially when we don't know if we're gonna have to go and tear this thing down.
I think there might have been some timing issues with when they submitted the bill. I'm sure they weren't expecting the work stoppage they got, which was pretty inexplicable.
So
in
before
my
we pay
opinion.
it, can you go back, can we take it off the bill list then, and have you go back to them?
It's not the way bill lists work.
I'll review.
You're already getting authorization and a requisition. And actually, bill list should not be on your agenda based upon this case. So you can ask the question if you want, but those are going to be.
So how would you counsel something like that? You'd say that, but if-
Manager, it's
I will review it.
you have to have absolute discretion.
Well,
I will review it. I will make sure, the work is complete. Hopefully, some better senses prevail and the work gets complete soon.
From what I understand, this is embroiled in whether they have permits or not, or I think you've said that to me, and who sh-
I told Mr. Florio that he's got to get those permits in. The permit, he didn't even submit the jacket, so the jacket has to be submitted. He's been asked to do that, and we'll be doing that shortly thereafter.
well,
Can I just,
this is outrageous.
I don't want to weigh in much on this.
What do you think? Paying for something that
Why are you doing that? That's really, it's so rude.
What?
It's late, and it's really, it's honestly,
Well,
it's
it's
just
condescending.
rude.
Put the
Here
camera on
was my
Mr.
question is this.
Vestine and show how he talks about respect.
I just want to ask this. I believe when you apply for permits in this town, there's a thing about not releasing final payment until all of the inspections have been completed. I could be wrong. I know that I've seen that someplace. I think it's on permits that we've applied for. If that's out there, Jerry, when you use your discretion, if you could find some way to work with the contractor here.
Very responsive to all
That, I'm not, thank you.
So, listen, there's $13 million of bills here. I'm not gonna hold up a bill list for this, but for the record, I'm gonna say that this is not good management. That we were in this situation to begin with, and now we're paying somebody full payment for a job that isn't done. So I want the minutes to reflect that. I
Well,
mean,
the job is done, Mayor.
The job is not done, sir. The job is not done, sir. You
I
have
think
not
I know a
been there.
little bit more about this than you do.
Well,
The
drive
job-
by it.
The job is done.
Drive by it.
The job is done, Mayor. The job is substantially completed. The term
Listen,
under
I
the...
did that for a living, you didn't do that. The job is not done.
I
I've
guess
never
you know
worked at-
more
I've
about
done-
land
I've
use
done-
and construction than I
Listen,
do.
I've done more construction than you'll
I suppose
probably
you
ever
do.
do.
And you
But
know
I will
what?
tell you something, we've
Then why
never
don't you sit in
paid
my
out
chair?
a contractor when work was still
Mayor,
to be
I'm
done.
telling you, the job is substantially complete. They've been asked to submit a permit. They've waited for weeks to do that. The permit I told them to submit the permit application. You have a manager. It's his job for the day-to-day affairs.
And that's why I'm gonna follow the law based on what you're saying, but I will tell you, from my professional experience,
Well,
this
you're
is
wrong.
This is ridiculous.
You're wrong. You're wrong as a matter of law.
Listen, okay, I'm sure you have people come in your house and fix your bathroom and you pay them even though it's not done.
Anyway, let's
I understand
proceed.
substantially
Let's proceed.
complete.
The bill list is here. I can assure you the bill list will not be on the agenda next time.
Well, we'll change the rules as we go along till next time. So anyway, that's ridiculous. Now we're gonna take it off. You've been here for years and now we're taking it off. Okay. So let's have a roll call on the bill list.
Mrs. Giovanella?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Marcus?
Aye.
Mr. Vastine?
Aye.
Mayor Glover?
With my stated comments, aye. Let's see, Ms. Lucina, what do we have next here? Nothing but good stuff, right? We have an ordinance of Deputy Mayor, 2014-006. This is the introduction, I believe, right?
An ordinance appropriating the sum of $244,000 from the New Jersey Department of Transportation in connection with the project known as West Broad Street, Section 2, milling and top course paving.
Yes, I would like to move that this ordinance be adopted on first reading and be advertised according to law in the Scotch Plains Times, and that copies be available in the clerk's office and posted on the bulletin board. The second and final reading and public hearing on same to be held on
What date?
August 12, 2014, at 7 p.m. in the Municipal Building, Park Avenue, Scotch Plains.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Lucina, would you call the roll?
Mrs.
Unless anyone
Giovanella?
has any comments.
So this is only to introduce it, and we've agreed in the prior meeting that the public would be made aware so that they can come and express their thoughts on it, yes?
This is
We're talking about West Broad Street, not the traffic.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
But yes to the question going forward.
Yes to the question going forward. Okay, so can we have a roll call on that, unless anyone has a comment on this work? By the way, believe we got monies from the state, correct?
Yeah, this is grant
244,000?
funds, and this is just more formality. You have to introduce
That's
it.
exactly right.
My answer is yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Marcus?
Aye.
Mr. Vastine?
Aye.
Mayor Glover?
Aye. Ms. Lucina, would you read ordinance 2014-007?
An ordinance supplementing and amending the revised general ordinances of the Township of Scotch Plains, Chapter 7, entitled Traffic, with regard to parking restrictions on Homestead Terrace.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I would like to move that this ordinance be adopted on first reading and be advertised according to law in the Scotch Plains Times, and that copies be available in the clerk's office and posted on the bulletin board. The second and final reading and public hearing on same to be held on August 12, 2014, at 7 p.m. in the Municipal Building, Park Avenue, Scotch Plains.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I think we've talked this one out. Would everyone agree? Or would someone like to make further comment? Hearing nothing.
I would just simply, very briefly state for the record, I appreciate very much the chief of police coming in here tonight and giving us
Hanging out.
The background with regard to this proposed ordinance, and I note that he's still here after 10 minutes after 11 o'clock, so that is much appreciated, as well as the input given by the town engineer, and as stated by Mr. Whitehouse, the president of the Board of Ed. He supports the ordinance, so I'm prepared to move forward and support it myself.
Thank you.
So, I'm not sure yet where I'm going with this ordinance. I do think it does need to be introduced based on the timeline. I do think we need to allow the public to come in and weigh on it.
So all
But
we're doing is introducing it.
Yes, so I just wanted to also make it clear that I think that the solution lies in something more comprehensive, safe routes to school, complete streets.
Okay. Any other comments before we ask for, we have had a motion, a second. We've had some discussion.
My comments were to the effect that I support.
No, I agree.
approving
I
it
don't,
tonight,
you
but
said them
you know,
quite
certainly
clearly. It was
We'll go
fine.
forward with it.
No, thank you. Ms. Lucina, please call the roll.
Mrs. Giovanella?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Marcus?
Aye.
Mr. Vastine?
Aye.
Mayor Glover?
Aye. Okay, next thing is council comment. Anyone have anything further to say?
I have something
Okay, please.
under council comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, first of all. I'm not sure if we ever heard back on where we were going with the volunteer firefighters as far as having, providing them either discounted or free access to, Shady Rest. That would be for the volunteer firefighters and the EMS, the volunteer EMS. Have we heard anything more back on that?
I know that was discussed at a rec commission meeting recently. I don't know, maybe Councilman Marcus remembers, or if not, I can just get the updates on that from their minutes.
Yeah, I would have to check on it, Mr. Jimes, and get back.
Maybe you can bring that to the
I
next
know.
meeting.
that. You're talking about fire,
And, EMS, our volunteer,
fire and EMS. Okay.
and then I'd like to talk about PAL a little bit. I don't necessarily understand all of the pieces as far as we have a recreation department and then we have separate leagues. My daughter, and listen, you guys have all heard me say how fabulous and how much I really support the efforts of all of these leagues. We particularly benefit a great deal from PAL because my daughter does cheer. This year she played 8 under travel softball. The experience has been excellent. She learned so much from the coach, your daughter's coach, who has been amazing. Last night, she was hit in the face with a line drive and ended up in the emergency room for several hours. It was a very long night, a lot of vomiting, concussion, stitches in her lip. And the piece that was troublesome to me, and the reason I'm raising this at a council meeting, is that the team that she played all had safety gear on in the field. And it was ironic that when I took her to the dentist today to check her, to see if her jaw alignment had been shifted, the dental hygienist said that she lives in that town and there's a requirement. So I understand that this is not a recreation program, but we don't have recreation programs and we don't have school programs. So there's this whole weird kind of relationship with that. And what I'm asking is not for tonight at 11:15, but can we be of some kind of assistance as a council in looking at the best possible safety measures for our kids? Other towns are requiring different equipment. You know, when I think about what could have happened last night, and I mean, even to tell you what it was horrible. And it is not a negative comment toward the league that has been so fabulous or the coach who has been so amazing. But I'm just asking what we can do as a council to help support these programs in light of the fact that recreation doesn't run its own and the school system doesn't have their own, unless you get to the high school level.
Something you may want to bring back.
Certainly. I mean, I'll certainly discuss it. I can tell you just from a personal standpoint, personal experience, you know, as you may know, I mean, my daughter played softball probably beginning at age 6 through, you know, her senior year this past year at the high school. And, you know, I've been to a lot of games. I've seen, you know, what people do in terms of equipment. From a philosophical standpoint, I agree with you in terms of providing the necessary safety equipment that should be used. You know, my daughter, when they still had organized sports at the middle school level when she played, and she pitched, and at that point she, other than wearing a heart guard, didn't wear any other particular safety equipment. When she got to the high school and she continued to pitch, we made it our business to ensure that if she was going to do that, that she was going to wear proper face guard equipment, because I've seen kids get hit with line drives too. And that's a very scary thing, and I'm sorry to hear that happened to your daughter. I don't know, quite honestly, whether we have the authority as a council to do anything about it.
I don't know either.
I think it's probably a league requirement, but again, from a personal standpoint, certainly if, I firmly believe that if anybody pitches softball, they ought to be wearing that type of equipment. But I've seen many players also in other positions wearing face guards, you know, face masks, so to speak. So as a parent, I think that's a personal decision. It's something that, you know, I think I would do. My daughter played other positions, so we didn't insist upon it when she did not pitch. But if there's something we can do,
But you'll bring it back to the league.
from,
As a matter of law, you can't use public money to fund private.
No, but you'll bring it back to the league.
right, I mean,
I don't.
know that we have any authority to-
But you could bring it back to the league, maybe you could mention it, maybe they'll save on insurance if they do something like that, you know, who knows?
And this was the PAL League you're talking
Yes, but I want to make sure that I go on record just as saying this is not a negative comment
Right,
at
I
all
think
about the
that
league
you
or
made
the
that
coach
clear.
or anything else. I was just, it happened, it was an odd coincidence that the team she was playing when she got hurt all had this protective gear on.
Yeah.
I haven't done the research about how that came to be. This only happened last night. It was a very long night. But all I'm saying is we don't meet a lot now, especially in the summertime. If we could just start the conversation, and
Good idea.
if you,
Just-
Mr. Lair,
just
tell me
make
this
it
is.
You can actually, you know, if you want to pass a regulation in your parks ordinance that says that you have to wear certain equipment, especially the ones that are Green Acres fields, the ones that are funded Green Acres, you can certainly put those kind of regulations in there. It's something you may want to consider.
I'm just looking to start the conversation, and again, it doesn't have to be right
Okay.
now, but if we could all kind of do some legwork on
Okay,
this,
that's
and
what I
we're,
think we will.
I'll bring it back to
No, I agree. I mean, the more.
Point is well taken, and we
And I'll bring it back to them. Okay, so we've got you doing something, and Jeff, you said there's something we can do, so I'm gonna press on if that's okay.
And I'm purchasing a bubble and
And you're
putting her in
purchasing
it,
a
and
bubble and
that's
putting in the
all
bubble.
that's happening
Okay, so
from
we
now
have a
on.
couple of public folks here. Anyone want to take another opportunity to address this council before we adjourn and move into executive session?
It's been a long night. I'm ready to say good night. Thank you all for your input. Colleen, I think it's very important what you said. Unfortunately, with every sport, there comes a lot of tragic injuries. And even with soccer, I mean, as a nurse, I can't stand to see these kids head the ball, because down the road they're going to have similar problems like the football players have. Okay? My other comment is to Jerry. I know a while back we talked about paying taxes with our credit cards. Has that gone anywhere?
That's something that would take a very long time.
Okay, well, keep me updated, please. Thank you very much. Good night.
Get home safe. Seeing nobody else, ask for a motion to adjourn. Well, wait, yeah, but I was gonna ask, we haven't asked the public to weigh in. Do we at least do that?
You don't have an obligation to do that.
The attorney says we don't have an obligation, so I'm gonna yield to the attorney. It's 11:20, folks. Can we make a motion to go into executive session, please?
I would like to make a motion to move to go into executive session.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we're going to adjourn to go into executive session. I'm going to ask everyone, including our wonderful cameraman, for hanging in there all night. No. Chief says he'll protect me.
I'm just going to read the resolution.
Please.
Whereas Article 6 of the Open Public Meetings Act provides that a public body may hold a closed session, and whereas the Township Council
Thanks, Chief.
will during this meeting enter into discussion on the following matters: contract negotiations, potential land sale, Lot 6, Block 8301, Comcast franchise renewal. Whereas the matters to be discussed in closed session are to remain in the strictest of confidence by all Township Council members in furtherance of their fiduciary duties to the Township of Scotch Plains. Now therefore be it resolved, matters discussed at this meeting will be released to the public when reasons for discussing and acting upon them enclosed no longer exist.
Okay. We're up. So you're out. Are we going to be long?